I will help you help yourself, and you are automatically in a negative frame of mind if you are trying to cast yourself as a victim. It is just unproductive to cast yourself as a victim. It is totally self-defeating. It is you making yourself your own worst enemy. And we are back with another episode of the Julius Files. I am your host, Jasan Julius, and today we're going to talk about productive and non-productive. And I'm not talking about other people. I'm not talking about building a team or motivating other people. I'm talking about productive thoughts, productive actions, productive efforts, or obviously the reverse, non-productive words, thoughts, or actions. In my daily walk, that was just something that I actually started thinking about because, even right down to I started thinking, is it productive for me to take my daily walks? Because I'll generally walk outside because I wonder about, would it be more productive if I went and got a treadmill? Because I know about the distance that I walk and about how many minutes that I walk and about the pace that I walk. But then you come into I really enjoy being outside. I enjoy the fresh air. And I've got to give a props. Andy Frisella created a program called 75 Hard, and it literally did change my life. When I was a kid, my nickname was Gasoline Legs because I didn't want to walk anywhere. I couldn't rationalize it. I was like, you got a bike? Why walk? You got a car? Why walk? Up until the point of 75 Hard, which part of the program is 2 45-minute workouts. And through listening to some of his content, I realized that one of those 45-minute pieces could be just simply walking. I took to walking to actually get through the program because I didn't want to do 2 45-minute stints at 48 years old of heavy lifting. Little side note on that. As you get older, and it's a generality, but it is a lot more that as you get older, you can work out and it can become unproductive. And when I say unproductive, there comes a point where you can stress your body to the point where your body will flood with cortisol. And that is where working out becomes unproductive. So at my age, I'm looking at it going, well, I don't want to work out an hour and a half a day because all the research that I know says that at the point of about 20 or 25 minutes of heavy lifting, your body does start to stress to a point that it releases cortisol, and then that heavy lifting can become unproductive. So when I did the 75 Hard program and being very adamant that I was going to complete the program, one 45-minute workout was walking, and one 45-minute workout was actually working out. Not that I wanted to work out for 45 minutes, but I was following the program to the T. Part of the program, though, is that one of those 45-minute workouts have to be outside. So I was killing 2 birds with one stone by speed walking for 45 minutes and doing it outside. And part of that piece of the program was that you're not going to go 75 days without experiencing temperature fluctuation, rain, sleet, snow. You're going to experience all forms of, and that was about developing mental toughness itself. But I digress. I can keep going down that rabbit hole on productive or non-productive. The point is that I did fall in love with walking. I do find it to be very productive, and I love being outside and honestly, walking in the elements. I'm wearing my beanie today because it's Indiana and it has already turned into freezing temperatures. So, time to break out a different set of clothing. But the point is, this is more of one, I'm not telling you to do, I'm trying to give you perspective and how I approach life because I think about these things. Like I said, I sent my son a picture and it was a memory by Facebook where he took a picture of me down in the Keys standing by that, I don't know, it wasn't a water tower. It was like a concrete buoy, the most southern point of America or of the United States. And it was 11 years ago, and I realized it was my son that actually took the picture. And that is only to say that, like, you blink an eye and bam, 11 years is gone. So knowing that the time actually moves a lot faster than what you want it to, I want to make sure that I'm being as productive as possible with my words, my thoughts, my actions, my beliefs, and my efforts. And so it was like, okay, well, we'll turn a pod into this because I want to talk about some of the things that I really do think are either productive or not productive when it comes to those things. It's like I don't think people realize how much time you spend in your own mind. Everybody, if you really sit back and think about it, like, they've given the metaphors, like you got the good birdie on one ear and you got the bad on the other, and they're both speaking to you, and you're going to decide which one of them that you're going to listen to. And again, I try and operate life in high character, so I'm always cognizant of that, where I've long said I've thought about doing stupid shit, but generally I'll think about it and then see that the potential negative that could come out of it, even if it sounds fun, is just not worth the overall risk of being caught or of something potentially bad happening. So I will forego potential fun because I take enough risk in business that I'm like, daily life, I'm not a big bar goer, because you're going to drink, and then as you become inebriated, your decision-making process, let's just say, has a tendency to fail you, and you make stupid-ass decisions, and a DUI that results in, best case scenario, just jail. Worst case scenario, car accident, you hit somebody else. Like, none of that is worth the potential harm of screwing up my life in general. And I have found many times in life that, well, you know what? I'll be honest. When I say honest, trust me, I'm a very honest individual. I have a bad habit of saying, let me be honest, what I'm meaning is let me be candid. In my early 20s, I was exposed to crack. And we're I don't know, maybe I'm getting too deep into baseball, but the point is that, like, you got the dirty man's way of doing it, where you take a can and you indent and put ashes on top and put the rock on there, and you got a carburetor and you light it. It's not it's not as potent and as addictive of a stream or of a method of doing it as what I did progress to in a very short order, within like a week and a half's time, into a glass pipe that is stuffed with like metal sandpaper or abrasion, so that you can actually put the rock on it and melt it, and it melts all over the actual wire mesh. And then you can actually heat it up, and it is very potent. In the span of, I'm going to say, 2 weeks of being exposed to it and trying it, and then having that event that night where I walked into a trailer at like 8 o'clock at night, and I was exposed to the harshest or most potent way of a crack pipe, and then walking out the next morning at 8 a.m. and realizing that I had just literally spent 12 hours inside of this trailer doing crack. Not something I'm proud of. I'm just trying to tell you the story. But the point is, when I walked outside and realized that I walked in there at night and I'd literally spent 12 hours the next day, I specifically remember standing in front of that trailer and saying, wow, that was great. That will wreck my entire life, and I have more going for me in life than it would be worth losing everything just to do that dumb shit. And I never did it again. That was it. It was like, even in my younger years, whether I consciously thought about it, I've always been processing productive and unproductive actions. Now, I won't deny that, upon evaluating that and certain other things that I've come across in life, gratefully, I don't overly believe that I have an addictive personality. So I understand that those are very heavily addictive drugs. Several years later, I was a union rep, and I had to represent some people that had found their way into that and worse drugs. And I literally watched it destroy people's lives, and they had like everything in their life going for them. That was a point where I could look back and say, you know what, I made a very good decision where I tried something and realized, like, doesn't matter how good this was, this will wreck my life. And it wasn't productive. It was a very unproductive thing. And then we get into you talk to yourself. And the question is, what are you saying to yourself what kind of beliefs do you have? Because if you are like, I am not a big proponent of feeding yourself limiting beliefs. It might be that your belief is, in fact, you know your limits. You're not going to go this way. But if you tell yourself a limiting belief, you're actually getting in the way of your own potential. And I believe that my potential is limitless. I have literally spent a career proving other people wrong and beating the odds. And I don't believe that I could have done that if I continually told myself it can't be done. There are things that you're not capable of doing, but telling yourself that you're not capable of doing them is the surest way to never finding out what the full potential of your capabilities are. So when I'm talking about productive or unproductive, I'm talking about accountability and how you treat yourself. And that comes down to the words that you allow to come out of your mouth, the thoughts that you allow to circulate through your head, the things you feed in your pie hole, which have a direct effect on your physical health, and inevitably the beliefs that you tell yourself are either true or untrue or possible or not possible. And I'm not sitting here telling you what is right or wrong. I'm trying to give you a perspective to this is how I process thought in my life to always make sure I'm not being my own worst enemy, that I'm not getting in my own way. I would encourage you to do the same, because there is a lot to be said for critical thought, because again, I really do. Like, I am so aware today that I can look back and understand the statement, ignorance is bliss, because when you're able just to walk through life as a daze and you are not aware and you are ignorant, there is a lot of harsh truths and realities that you are never exposed to, that never bombard your brain, they never get in your way. But the reality is, so few people are like ignorant to the point where they experience the bliss of being ignorant. At some point, you are exposed to something that wakes you up and makes you aware. And once you are aware, then you have to hold yourself accountable for your words, your thoughts, your actions, and your beliefs, because we have to hold ourselves accountable if you're going to live any type of quality of life. For instance, victimhood and entitlement. I'm not saying that there are not, in fact, victims in life. I'm saying it's unproductive for you to cast yourself as a victim or believe that you are always the victim. You might find people that will have sympathy or empathy for you for whatever situation might have occurred that made you a victim. But if you look at yourself as a victim, I mean, I just have to be honest where I'm like, I'll say it from my perspective. If I am having a conversation with somebody and I see that they're casting themselves as a victim, I am not going to help them. I'm not even going to attempt to help them. The one thing that I might do, which is where we come back to me being abrasive, is that I will tell them, you're acting like a victim. Change that, and I might be willing to have a further conversation with you to actually help you, because I'm not just going to help you, I will help you help yourself, and you are automatically in a negative frame of mind if you are trying to cast yourself as a victim. It is just unproductive to cast yourself as a victim. It is totally self-defeating. It is you making yourself your own worst enemy. Entitlement. Okay, so my grandparents on my mother's side, my grandfather dies, my grandmother dies, and my grandfather calls me. And at this point, I always knew that they lived through the Depression. I mean, so that they were penny pinchers in a lot of ways. But my grandfather had bought this piece of land in Washington State, and I think he paid like, I don't know, $3,500 for it. And as I remember, I'm trying to recall these numbers. I think he paid like $3,500 for it. And I think his property taxes per year on the thing at this point were like $6,500. Washington State forced him to sell that land back to them. They gave him $650,000 for this. So that is only to say that I knew that, one, he had retired from Alcoa. Two, they'd lived through the Depression. They were penny pinchers. Three, he had been forced to sell land, which ended up in an actual windfall of money. So he was rewriting the will, and while he didn't put a number on it, I knew there was a couple $1,000,000 there. He called me to tell me that he was, in fact, that I was in the will for 20%. As actually it was 25% because he wanted my sister, my mother, me, and Charity 25% apiece. And he was literally calling me to ask me for permission to include Ellie in the will. And Ellie was like family, but she was not blood family. She would have been akin to my mother's sister because she lived in Washington State and she looked after my grandparents, and we all thought highly of Ellie. So it was a twofold answer. I'm like, one, it's your money. You do not need my permission. Two, we all think, Ellie is just a wonderful woman. By all means, if that's what you want to do and split it 25 ways, do. No problem at all. So my grandfather had literally called me to tell me that you're in the will for about $500,000. I encouraged him to spend his money because I'm like, I knew he was reaching the end of his life, and I'm like, Grandpa, just like that's your money. Go spend your money, enjoy your money. But I always told myself that where I'm going in business, like when I get that inheritance, I want it to be a drop in the bucket. I'm not like, I am, as he is telling me, entitled to this inheritance, but I didn't want it to matter. And honestly, I wanted him to spend the money. He made the money, he saved the money, he invested prudently, like go out and enjoy that money before you die. There's a whole bunch that happened between that conversation and when he actually died. But I will tell you, in the last 6 months before he died, he had spent a year or two with a black widow. Within the last 6 months of dying, she had literally gotten him under sedation to change his entire will, cut everybody in the family out of it, and write her and her entire family into the actual will. And literally, more to the point, wrote into the will that when he died, we were not even to be contacted. I didn't find out my grandfather died until he was already in the ground because I realized I hadn't heard from him in a minute, and I started making phone calls to check up to literally find the man was already dead and buried. Nevertheless, none of us got a penny. I could, and I'm not going to say I could. There was a time where I literally did pursue and started asking questions and making contacts to pursue legal action. One, because I recognized her as a black widow, and I started thinking, you know what, let the lawyers chew it all up so that she don't get it. But the point is, me being in victimhood, me thinking that I was entitled to something, I recognized it was not a productive way for me to live my life. It was not a productive place for me to waller mentally, and I let it go. Because everything in my life has been about, I don't want to look back and find that I am my own worst enemy. In my business, I know that one of the biggest problems in business is that entrepreneurs end up being the bottleneck to the success of their own organization and operation. And I have been on this learning journey because I wanted to make sure that I was using my time productively and that I was not that bottleneck and being my own worst enemy, and much worse, being the enemy of these brands and a business that I'd created. And obviously, when you're trying to build a culture and foster a team and grow, the last thing I need is my team looking back on me and saying, you're getting in our path of all of us chasing our potential. So I productively spend my time on my learning journey to make sure that I'm not being my own worst enemy and that I'm always bringing more to the table so that I'm earning my place as the top of the chain that is the business itself. I'm not saying that I have not made perfect decisions, not by far. I'm not saying that I lived the perfect life, not by far. I am saying that mentally and physically, I live a pretty solid life. And it's because I am always thinking about thoughts, words, actions, beliefs. Are they productive or not? Because if they're not, It's like that ain't no different than when you get into alcoholism or AA meetings. Like, you have to admit that you have a problem before you can work on fixing the problem. If you can't look at your thoughts, words, actions, and beliefs and diagnose whether they are in fact productive or unproductive, you don't know what to work on, and you don't know what to concentrate on, and you don't know where to set your boundaries, and you don't know what to fix. There are many people that would describe me as a overthinker. I won't describe myself that way because I think that my thoughts lead to actions. And I think most of the people that are overthinkers, that they just overthink themselves into inaction. But I'm not going to deny that as an introvert, I do know that I do value my time alone, that I do value the time that I spend inside of my own mind, thinking about my words, actions, beliefs, and thoughts. Because again, thought is some of the highest vibration that you can have, but you got to get to truth. And being truthful and honest with yourself, like don't be a hypocrite. You don't have any right to talk to somebody and be truthful and honest to somebody else about their potential shortcomings if you're not, in fact, looking in the mirror and actually addressing your own. What I'm encouraging in this pod is that you look at it from that perspective. Are your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your beliefs productive or non-productive? And if they're non-productive, you are now aware, and it should be very clear what you actually have to do to change that. Because then I carry that over to mental health, physical health, dental health, and gut health. Quality of life is more important than life itself. And no matter what you do in life, I would encourage you, as I encourage myself, to do things in the most productive manner. And when you find yourself being unproductive and being your own worst enemy, like at any time, you can stop being a fuck up and you can start making good decisions, and you can start thinking positive thoughts, and you can start making good actions, and you can start changing your beliefs that will have a direct benefit on your quality of life a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now. It does not matter where you are today. It matters that you become aware of where you are, and if you need to make appropriate changes, that you start making them today so that it can start to have a better effect on tomorrow and the next day and the next week, month, year, and so on. I'm 48, and I want to make sure that my next decade and 2 decades and 3 decades are as fulfilling and fruitful and as productive as possible, because I know that 3 decades from now, I'm going to be coming to that stage of my life where the majority of my life is going to be behind me, and I want to be able to reflect on a life well lived. And I do not want to sit there with regret, knowing that I'm at a stage of my life that time is running out, and that I don't have the time or the physical ability or the mental capacity to actually fix it. Because there does come a time in life where it's like, I'm like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. At any time you can quit making bad decisions, but you are going to get to the end of your life where it's like you're 80, 90 years old. Well, if you've made bad decisions all your life at 80 years old and you're like, I'm going to stop making bad decisions and start making good decisions, it's too late. There does come a point of no return. It's just too late. And the sooner you realize that, and the sooner you become aware of that, the more happy and fulfilling of a life that you will have. And again, that's where everybody is able to prescribe and describe what the meaning of their life is. Generally, if you want positive mental and physical health, you got to stack good decisions on top of each other so that you can enjoy this life. And I'm saying that because, I mean, like, this is a shitty, unfair world. Do not think that fairness is a staple of what should be in the world. That is just not like that's even removed from idealism. I don't know where fairness comes into it, because What is fair to one person is not going to be fair to another person. There is no 1 + 1 = 2 when it comes to equaling out what is fair. There's just too many circumstances to the situation. The world will beat you up, but how you receive that mentally and physically is going to determine your quality of life. And that is what you have control over. And that is what I tell myself. I have control over my mentality. I have control over my attitude. I have control over my beliefs. I have control over the thoughts that I think and the things that I tell myself to either be true or not true. I hold myself accountable, and I truly believe that it has led me down a path where right now I experience a higher quality of life mentally and physically because of that perspective, because of the constant reflection of, is what I'm thinking or what I'm doing productive or unproductive for living a high quality life? Okay, that's my pod. Questions, comments, snide remarks? I want to hear them. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, please share the show. All right, till next time. You guys have a good night.